Latin America, a region renowned for its rich cultural heritage, breathtaking landscapes, and vibrant communities, paradoxically struggles with persistent poverty. From the towering peaks of the Andes to the vast Amazon rainforest, the question echoes. Why, despite its natural wealth and potential, does Latin America remain entangled in economic hardship? Situated in the Sonoran Desert, Nogales offers a vivid illustration of the stark economic disparities across the U.S.-Mexican border. This city is divided into two distinct municipalities, Nogales, Arizona in the United States to the north, and Nogales, Sonora in Mexico to the south. Despite sharing the same geographic and cultural heritage, these twin cities have diverged dramatically in economic prosperity and quality of life. On the north side, Nogales, Arizona, is a picture of relative affluence. The average income of residents is more than 7 times higher than that of their counterparts in the south. Education is a priority, with most adults possessing at least a high school diploma, which paves the way for better job opportunities and economic stability. Healthcare facilities are comprehensive and accessible, contributing to lower infant mortality rates and higher overall health standards. Although the local government sometimes grapples with political inefficiencies and corruption, it typically aligns its actions with the people's will. Property rights are well protected, providing a secure environment for individuals to invest and prosper without the fear of arbitrary seizure or violence. This sense of security extends to the overall community, fostering a sense of safety and trust in public institutions. In sharp contrast, life in Nogales, Sonora is characterized by significant hardship and instability. The city, despite its smaller population, has a homicide rate that is double that of St. Louis, the American city with the highest homicide rate in 2019. Educational opportunities are scarce, with many adults lacking even a high school education, which limits their job prospects and contributes to a cycle of poverty. The healthcare system is underfunded and inadequate, resulting in higher infant mortality rates and poor health outcomes overall. Businesses in Nogales, Sonora face daunting challenges, not only due to rampant crime, but also because of a corrupt system that demands bribery and manipulation just to operate. Entrepreneurs must navigate a treacherous landscape where their safety and the security of their investments are constantly at risk. The dramatic differences between these two halves of Nogales raise a profound question. How can two cities, so close in proximity and so similar in their physical and cultural makeup, be so vastly different in economic and social outcomes? The answer lies in a complex tapestry of historical, political, and economic factors that have shaped the development paths of these two cities. The stark contrast between the two Nogales cities serves as a poignant example of the broader economic divide between Latin America and North America. Historically, Latin America was seen as a region of immense value and potential. For centuries, it attracted the attention of both indigenous civilizations and European colonizers eager to exploit its riches. In contrast, Northern America was sparsely populated, with nomadic tribes spread across its vast landscapes, while the dense and sophisticated societies of Latin America thrived. During the 19th and 20th centuries, countries like Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, and Venezuela were seen as potential global powerhouses. Venezuela, in particular, enjoyed an economic boom in the 1950s, thanks to its massive petroleum reserves. At one point, it was the third richest country in terms of income per capita, propelled by a burgeoning oil industry. However, this situation has since deteriorated dramatically. Today, Venezuela is embroiled in one of the worst economic crises in modern history, characterized by hyperinflation and widespread emigration. Venezuela's story is not an isolated case. It reflects the broader challenges faced by many Latin American nations. Despite their abundant natural resources and rich cultural heritage, these countries have struggled to realize their full economic potential. Geographically, South America is well positioned for economic prosperity. Still, the obstacles it faces are not merely due to its culture or geography. The issues that hinder Latin America's progress are deeply rooted in a complex interplay of historical, political, and economic factors. Colonial legacies have left many countries with deeply ingrained social and economic inequalities. In addition, political instability and corruption have undermined the development of robust institutions necessary for sustained economic growth. Furthermore, many Latin American economies have historically relied on the export of raw materials, making them vulnerable to fluctuations in global commodity prices. In comparison, North American countries, particularly the United States, have benefited from stable political systems, strong institutions, and diversified economies. This has allowed them to weather economic downturns and maintain a steady path towards growth and prosperity. The deep-seated disparities between Latin America and North America can be largely attributed to the distinct colonization strategies employed by European powers. Beginning in the 15th century, Spanish and Portuguese colonizers implemented systems designed to exploit the indigenous populations and extract vast amounts of resources. Unlike the relatively decentralized and nomadic tribes in North America, the Spanish founded highly structured and hierarchical societies in Latin America, which they quickly co-opted to consolidate their power and wealth. The Spanish conquest of the Aztec and Inca empires is a prime example of this exploitative strategy. Conquistadors such as Herman Cortés and Francisco Pizarro leveraged both force and manipulation to subdue these sophisticated civilizations, seizing their vast resources and exploiting their labor. This method of exploitation was institutionalized through the encomienda system, where Spanish landowners were granted control over indigenous populations, compelling them to work in agriculture, mining, and other enterprises under harsh conditions. One of the most egregious instances of this exploitation is a silver mining operation at Potosí, Bolivia. Discovered in the 16th century, the Cerro Rico mountain became the most productive silver deposit in history. However, the extraction of this wealth came at an enormous human cost. Indigenous laborers were forced into the mines under brutal conditions, leading to the decimation of a significant portion of the local population due to overwork, malnutrition, and exposure to hazardous environments. Long-term impacts of these colonial practices have been profound. The wealth extracted from Latin America was used to fuel the economic growth of Spain and Portugal, while the region itself was left with a legacy of social and economic inequality. The reliance on a narrow set of extractive industries, such as mining and agriculture, has made many Latin American economies vulnerable to fluctuations in global commodity markets. Moreover, the concentration of land and wealth in the hands of a few has perpetuated social inequalities and hindered the development of a robust middle class. In contrast, North America's colonization, primarily by the British, followed a different trajectory. The settlers established a system of small-scale farming and trade, which laid the foundation for a more diversified economy. Additionally, the establishment of representative institutions and the rule of law created a more stable political environment conducive to economic development. Understanding the historical roots of the disparities between Latin America and North America is crucial for addressing the challenges that persist today. By acknowledging the long-standing effects of colonial exploitation and implementing policies aimed at promoting social equity and economic diversification, Latin American nations can work towards a more prosperous and equitable future. The British colonization of North America diverged significantly from the Spanish and Portuguese strategies in Latin America. Initially, the British settlers tried to replicate the exploitative models they had observed in other parts of the world, focusing on utilizing indigenous labor for economic gain. However, they soon realized that the decentralized and sparse nature of the native populations in North America made this approach unworkable. This forced the British to adapt their colonial strategy. As a result, the British shifted their focus to incentivizing settlers through generous land grants and the establishment of representative governance structures. This approach laid the groundwork for the development of democratic and capitalist institutions that would come to define the United States. By distributing political power and economic opportunities more evenly among the colonists, the British colonies in North America began to cultivate a society that valued individual initiative and entrepreneurial spirit. These early policies set the stage for a wave of rapid industrialization and innovation in the United States. The ease with which individuals could acquire patents, start businesses, and engage in political processes created an environment that fostered economic growth and technological advancement. The accessibility of resources and the encouragement of broad participation in the political and economic arenas contributed to a thriving economy. This contrast in colonial approaches had long-lasting effects on the economic and social trajectories of North and Latin America. While Latin America's extractive and centralized colonial legacy contributed to persistent inequalities and economic vulnerabilities, North America's model of distributed governance and economic empowerment paved the way for sustained growth and stability. Understanding these historical differences is essential for addressing the current economic challenges faced by Latin America. By learning from the past and implementing policies that promote equitable growth and innovation, Latin American countries can work towards building a more prosperous and inclusive future. While the United States flourished under a system of inclusive institutions and economic empowerment, Latin America struggled to overcome the lingering effects of colonial exploitation. The independence movements that swept across Latin America in the early 19th century offered a glimmer of hope for change, but they did little to dismantle the deeply entrenched systems of inequality and oppression established during the colonial era. Instead, these newly formed nations were often marked by political instability, widespread corruption, and periods of authoritarian rule. The entrenched elites, who had accumulated power and wealth under colonial rule, were determined to preserve their status and privileges. This desire to maintain the status quo often came at the expense of the broader population, leading to a persistent cycle of inequality and underdevelopment that has continued to hamper the region's progress. The contrasting fortunes of Nogales, Arizona and Nogales, Sonora provide a vivid illustration of the broader narrative of historical and structural disparities between Latin America and North America. In Nogales, Arizona, the inclusive political and economic systems have fostered a sense of security and prosperity. In contrast, Nogales, Sonora has grappled with the challenges of an unstable and unequal socio-economic landscape, which are symptomatic of the broader issues facing Latin America. Understanding this historical context is crucial for addressing the ongoing challenges and unlocking the potential of the Latin American region. By acknowledging the roots of these disparities and working towards inclusive and equitable policies, Latin American nations can strive for a future that embraces prosperity and social justice for all. However, Latin America and the Caribbean face numerous challenges that hinder economic growth and development compared to the newly industrialized countries of Asia. One significant issue is the low rate of savings and investment in the region, which lags behind Asian counterparts like South Korea and Singapore. Moreover, large economies such as Argentina and Brazil are less open to trade, affecting their competitiveness and productivity on the global stage. Fiscal discipline is a key focus in the region, driven by the need to avoid past economic pitfalls. However, the combination of high social program costs and substantial debt servicing has led to the underinvestment in essential physical infrastructure. Despite a recent increase in direct investments in sectors like telecommunications and energy, other crucial areas, particularly transportation, continue to suffer. The poor state of infrastructure in many parts of Latin America and the Caribbean can be attributed to overly ambitious projects, tight fiscal budgets impacting maintenance and repair, and ill-considered decentralization of transport networks. As a result, the nation's infrastructure has deteriorated over time, limiting competitiveness and growth. Repairing and building up infrastructure is critical for economic growth, as demonstrated by East Asia's success. The relationship between income growth and the availability of power, telecommunications, and paved roads is evident in Latin America and the Caribbean, although not as strong as in Asia. Access to clean water, sanitation, transportation to job sites, and electricity are top priorities for the poor and offer substantial welfare gains. The World Bank lending pattern reflects a downward trend in infrastructure investment in the region. The share of the World Bank's portfolio dedicated to infrastructure in Latin America and the Caribbean has significantly declined, from 45% in 1994 to 30% in 2000. This decline, especially in recent years, poses serious repercussions for the region's growth. In response to the 1998 financial crisis, the World Bank shifted towards quick dispersing loans for the region, signaling another shock to the necessary infrastructure rebuilding. Another significant barrier to growth in Latin America and the Caribbean is the limited access to working capital and high credit costs, which impede the region's entrepreneurs from competing in external markets. Transport bottlenecks and supply insecurity further exacerbate the situation, resulting in raw material inventory levels in Brazil and Chile that are 3 to 4 times higher than in the United States. Collaboration between government, business, and labor to increase productivity and competitiveness is rare. Where such collaboration has occurred, as in El Salvador and Chile, the results have been impressive. However, the national vision, supported by investment in infrastructure, exports, and access to credit that drives growth in East Asia, is lacking in Latin America and the Caribbean.